I'm willing to step up. And again, this is part of, you guys remember my 5-second rule? One of the things I think in the last year and a half, probably the simplest, most profound thing that I learned with Mel Robbins. I actually watched her, I think it was a TED Talk, started digging into her work, and it's called the 5-second rule. The 5-second rule simply means when you hesitate and you feel yourself hesitating, you got to push yourself to do it within 5 seconds. You count backwards in your head, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before it hits 1, you take action. So I want you right now, count back in your head. I know you've got questions about things maybe not going right in your life or areas that you're successful in, other areas you need some help with. Again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and type your question in. Caleb, Rachel, Bree, Sierra, give me the questions in the chat window there, and then I will choose which ones I want to dial out to. Amanda, are you with me? Because I know Amanda texted me just this morning with some questions. That's Amanda already?
Yeah.
Well, you're good. Hey, Amanda.
Hi, Kori. How are you?
How are you doing, lady? You're going to have to speak up as much as you can because we're going to pipe you through here. So how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. All right, Amanda, go ahead with your question or your challenge, and let's see if we can address it live here with this week, 12, 13,000 people.
Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. First of all, hi, everybody. My question for you, Kori, is I would love to know how you manage stress and how you tune out.
Amanda, hold on 1 second. Bree, hold it closer to the microphone because that way we can just have it on the back side of there. All right, go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, I would love to know how you tune out the stupidity of the world and how, like, negative comments from other people who see you trying to do well but are trying to bring you down. For me personally, I find that I can keep myself on track mentally. I can stay in peak state, but eventually I find when people continuously bring negative energy around me, that eventually brings me down and I get off track. So how do you manage that stress and stay on track even if other people are bringing you down?
Thank you, Amanda. That's a phenomenal question. What you want to do is create this wall around me, this impenetrable fortress around me that people cannot get through. What I know is this: if I don't continually keep building myself up and putting the right information into myself, then when somebody kicks me, it's going to hurt. If somebody says something, it's going to hurt. Or the shit that's around me, the noise of people. And again, I'm going to be rude here, and I hope you guys don't care. As you know, I like to be rude at times. Is that literally 80% of people, maybe 85%, love focusing on negativity. I always say the people that don't have a life talk about those that do for entertainment. They love talking about things that are going on and putting someone else down. Instead of saying, well, Amanda's doing this, she's so positive, she's pushing herself. Instead of pushing you to be better, it's the whole crab in a bucket thing, right? Crabs in a bucket, they're going to keep pulling you down. And people always have two choices when they see you doing better. Is either A, they can come up to your level, or B is pull you back down to their level. So they can step up and be better, right? Or they can pull you down to their level. How do they do that? They do that by simply, whatever you're doing, have a reason why you're successful and they are not. Have an excuse for that. Or to make you feel more shitty. People love, they say misery loves company. It's true. So number one, guard who you're associating with. Guard your gates. And the gate is your brain. Guard your brain and what you're putting into it. The best example I can give you for myself is I felt the same kind of struggle early on. I mean, right now, I put so much positive stuff into my brain. I'm able to choose who I work with on a daily basis now. So I create this installation, an isolation around me, this fortress. But when you're in the real world, I mean, you might listen to a great podcast, and man, you come onto this with me and you get pumped up and get excited. But then how much of your time is actually spent, for example, and some of this is not by choice. You have a regular job. I know that about you, Amanda. And there's some negative people there, right? So you spend an hour with me and you spend 50 hours a week with people that are not going to be motivating you, not going to be pushing you, not going to help you, go to the next level in your life. Or if you are moving forward again, especially in a job environment, work environment, they see you as potentially jeopardizing their job because so they want to pull you back down. So you've got to insulate yourself. And how you do that is you put so much positive shit in your head and you realize that you are a lion. You are someone who doesn't care what the sheep think. And most people, I call them mindless drones. They're just going through life, and if you realize that, they're mindless drones. They don't mean ill. It's just that negativity always sells more than positivity. And so they're going to pull you back down as much as they possibly can. The best analogy I can give you is I grew up on a farm, as most of you know. In fact, I spent this weekend with my parents on their farm, cleaning chicken coops and all kinds of fun stuff with my kids and teaching them about real work. But while I was doing that, I had this analogy I used years ago. When we were kids, we had these buckets that we would get when my dad would grind feed corn. These buckets were these metal buckets that the liquid would come into that you'd pour into the feed that you'd make for the cattle and the pigs and whatever else and the chickens. So we put that in there, then we kept those buckets and we'd use those to carry feed and water to the animals, right? And so these buckets over time, because they were out in the weather, right? They were having some feed left over, some water left over, and they're out in the rain all the time. They would start rusting out over time. And so I remember when I was a kid, the buckets would almost touch the ground because I was so short, and I would fill those buckets up as full as I could and walk as fast as I could to the animals, because by the time I got there, half the bucket was empty, right? So I had this analogy in my head, that's life to me. So your brain is like that. Your brain, you put all this positive information. I met Amanda actually at a Tony Robbins conference about a year, almost 2 years ago now. And so you get all pumped up with what you want to change in your life, what you want to do. You come on to here, and it all sounds amazing in theory. It sounds so easy. But then you come to a Monday morning, you wake up, and the day just fucking hits you, right? And so It all sounds great in theory, but you've got to keep putting so much positive stuff in. So that, because here's what happens, Amanda, is imagine your life is like that bucket. And if that bucket, let's say over the weekend, you didn't keep filling that bucket up, it slowly kept depleting because you're around so much negativity, whether it be the news, whether it be people you're around, whether it be your job. All this negativity is depleting your resources, your energy level, and your positivity because it's so negative around you. And so when somebody kicks you, like something that happened, let's say today, for example, somebody at work says something shitty or does something to you, normally it wouldn't derail you, but because your mind's already not built up to a certain place, what happens is when they kick you, you go flying. Now what happens to me is I have this bucket I keep filling, no matter whether I feel like it or not. When I woke up this morning, I didn't fucking feel like it, I promise. I didn't feel like getting out of bed today. But I forced myself to do it, and I took action. Two things already happened to me today that would have derailed me in my 20s. But because I've had this, I keep filling that bucket up every single day with what I call my hour of power. So every single day, whether I'm at the gym, I'm in the car, my net time, I'm putting something positive in, something motivational. Don't just, when I say the hour of power, people think, well, that means only learning something. Learning is important and growing mentally. And I know you're a lifelong student, Amanda, so you want to keep learning. That's part of it. But you also have to put something on, a podcast, a YouTube video, songs, whatever puts you in a peak state. You've got to start with that. Be at a peak state and then take in the knowledge, the information, the learning, and keep doing that over and over again like a muscle where, for example, if you lift something super heavy and you haven't gone to the gym in a long time, you try lifting that thing that you knew you could lift 6 months ago, and you can't do the leg press, you can't do the arm curl, because your muscles aren't trained to do that. So that's what's happening to you, Amanda, if you don't have this, you're not always working these muscles out every single day. Is you go, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and negative shit, and then Monday hits you, that muscle's weak. And you go to push through something, and the negativity and the people at work, you try pushing through it, but that muscle's not built anymore, right? So it's going to be hard and challenging to do that. I don't know if that makes sense or not, Amanda, but you've got to insulate yourself and isolate yourself.
Yeah. No, all that makes total sense. And just kind of going off what you said is that this weekend I spent, my excuse is that it was rainy in Utah, so I cleaned the house, but then I spent a lot of time learning and reading. I've spent a lot of my time reading this weekend and filling my brain that way. But I didn't work out. I didn't eat the best. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I'm glad that I see the full picture now. It's like I can't just learn. I need to make sure that I'm staying active and making sure I'm eating correctly, because if I put all those puzzle pieces together, then I will be able to just brush off that stupidity of Monday morning like I usually would, but like I couldn't today.
Well, man, here's the thing is, if you don't, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen, or you're going to get yourself in a situation where, for example, for me, if I don't have my food prepped for the week, I'm going to eat like shit several times during the week, because I'm going to get to a point where all of a sudden, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm starving. And I start grazing, right? So you've got to, it doesn't matter what area of your life we're talking about. If you don't prep yourself for example, each day, when am I going to do my priming? When am I going to do my gym time? When am I going to do, my growth time, my personal development, my hour of power? When am I going to do this stuff? If you don't actually schedule it, it will not happen. And if you're not constantly building that muscle up and getting stronger and stronger and stronger in every area of your life, but the other side of it is, Amanda, is this. You can't beat yourself up. There are times when I fall off, but you know what that's also called? In fact, Sierra and Taylor, It was Taylor's birthday this weekend, and he sent a picture of Sierra eating some ice cream, and he jokingly said, how does this fit into the 30-day challenge? And I said, this is called living, right? You have to do things as well in life to live, right? And to enjoy yourself and realize why you do the things you do. You can eat like shit every so often and enjoy the taste of the food because you're also living your life, 85, 90% of it in a better place. So you can do those kinds of things. You have to enjoy yourself as well. But you also can't say, well, I ate like shit for breakfast. Now my whole day's screwed, right? That one meal you messed up, put a clean slate in your brain and move on and get back on track again.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Thank you, Amanda. You're awesome. Let's go to the next question. So make sure you mark down so Amanda gets $100.
Yep. So we've got Sarah. Sarah, are you still there? Can you hear me? Okay, go ahead and ask your question. We're ready for you.
Be as loud as you can to make sure you turn up the mic.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. My question is, how do you balance your work, family, and health, and what are your biggest struggles? And what tips and tricks do you have to find success in those?
Great question. So how do you juggle it all? And so first of all, understand something what I said last week, and I truly mean this. My belief is people say they only use 10% of their brain because they're only pushing themselves to 10% of what they can actually do. So first of all, don't have the barrier in your mind that you cannot do it all, because you can. I have met so many people who it just amazed me at how much they actually juggle. But I will go back to what I said to Amanda. You've got to schedule it. If you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen correctly. So for me, let me ask you this question. So the average person, they say, gets an average of 2 to 3 hours a night with their kids, right? Sarah, do you have kids?
Yeah, I've got 4.
Okay, so 4 like me, and that's craziness, right? Because they all need love and attention. So it's how you structure it. So for me, and this sounds bad, because I actually schedule time with my kids. Because I want to know that I'm having quality time with them, not just haphazardly throughout my week. So my kids, for example, versus me sitting down and watching television and having them just kind of go in and out and playing video games and on their iPad and whatever else, I actually schedule, for example, a half an hour and each day. And the half hour might be with Jaslyn today, might be with Maximus tomorrow, Riley the next day, but where I have a solid half an hour with each one of them one-on-one. That's one thing you can do, is actually schedule the time with them. I'm sure you like sleeping with are you married or divorced? Yeah. Okay. Again, I always assume things. So let's say you're married, right, and you want time with them. Well, would it be that big of a challenge for each one of you, let's say once every week or once every 2 weeks, where each one of you pick a different kid and actually sleep with them at night? Actually sit down and talk to them and find out what's happening in their life and their world and school and everything else. It's amazing to me because I think I know my kids, and that simple exercise where I'll lay down with Maximus before bed for half an hour, and all of a sudden he opens up to me more than he's talked to me in the last 3 weeks. So you've got to make everything deliberate as much as you possibly can. It also comes down to something else that I've learned, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I probably have gotten 50% more time out of my life by simply learning this simple thing that it's contradictory what everybody else tells you to do. Everybody else tells you the key to doing things is multitasking, right? And in my 20s, I used to like say how amazing I was because I could do so much shit at the same time. But what happened was I never ever laser focused on getting one thing done in an amazing way. So what I learned is, for example, most people go through life in a normal day and spend 4.5 hours on emails. That's the average person that has a white collar job. Is they spend 4.5 hours in their inbox. I don't do that. I structure 2 times a day at noon and at 4 o'clock for an hour. And I tell my people, they get an automatic response internally that says, in an effort to better serve you and to find the time to do that, I check my emails twice a day at noon and at 4 o'clock. If this is an emergency, then here's my cell phone number. But please ensure it's an emergency if you do call my cell phone. And that literally cut my time. I used to get, Sarah, 430 emails average a day. And that cut my emails down to about 70. Because in that same email, I also say, if this is a business, email, send it here. If this is something personal, I check my inbox, my personal email address less frequently. Here's my personal email if it's something personal. But that's one thing. My children, scheduling time with them is another thing. My gym, I've got to schedule that time in. If not, my day gets away from me. when I work throughout my day, I chunk time. If I have a PowerPoint to create, I'm not doing the PowerPoint and allowing people to come in and ask me questions at the office. I shut my office door. I work on that PowerPoint for an hour and I get it done. Because this is actually something that actually Rachel had me read an article, which I loved. Rachel sent me this article about people that schedule their time. Do you realize that an average person, if you're laser focusing on a task, something at your job, you're laser focusing on a project, somebody coming in and interrupting you with another question and taking you out of that laser focused state takes you between 15 to 20 minutes to get back in that state again of complete focus. So think about how many people on average that are doing a job or working somewhere, how many times their brain has to shift from topic to topic. They never accomplish anything amazing and move the needle forward. They get to the end of the day and say, oh, I got a lot of shit done, but what did I actually move forward? Right? So scheduling and structuring your time, your calendar should say, here's where I'm working out each day this week. Here's what I'm eating each day this week. Here's the time with my kids. If you want to go out with your husband, actually schedule it. Say every 2 weeks we're going to go on a date, we're going to go out to eat. Schedule it in your calendar. Because what I've learned is that anything that's not on my calendar is a wish. I want to get something done. I want to do this. I want to do that. If it is not scheduled, I have no way to hold myself accountable. And that's the second part of this is you've got to find, if you're at the gym, you're having trouble getting to the gym, find someone else to work out with you because it'll push you. Find someone else that's moving in the right direction of you that you are. And also be around people that just get shit done. Because most people, again, I jokingly say, most people in life are like a chicken that gets his head cut off. They run around all over the place aimlessly. I'm saying actually structure your time and structure what you're doing, and that'll make a big difference, I think, in your life, Sarah.
Okay.
So thank you, Sarah. Mark Sarah down. Yeah, your calendar. I want you to do me a favor, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind. Send me your next week. So you have this week to put it together. If you want me to look at it, send me a screenshot of your calendar, and I'll tell you and give you any feedback that I can give you from it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so while we wait for the next one, Phil has a question that he.
Phil's got one. It looks like Brian Baird is on my text as well, and also Dennis.
Yeah. We've got him. I can't dial Phil is the thing. He's international. So I'm going to ask it to you.
Okay, go ahead.
What was the biggest lesson you learned scaling the company from, say, 1 million to 20 million, or the most painful mistakes?
So the question is, what did I learn the most from scaling my company from 1 million to 20 million and up? And what did I learn from that? Phil, that's a great question. By the way, Phil, you're going to meet him, those that are in Vegas. He's from the UK, very, very successful software company. We worked together at various events as far as in the same group and just liked each other and push each other, right? So the answer to your question, Phil, is how do you go from 1 million to 20 million, and how did things change? Well, first of all, the same things that work, and you went to Business Mastery, Phil, you know this, is first of all, I had to change my mindset because you can honestly micromanage yourself to $1 million business. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to teach you guys, not this next Monday because of Memorial Day, but the next following Monday, is I'm going to share with you guys 5 side hustles that you can do to make at least $100,000 a year. On the side, 5 hours a week to make $100,000 a year starting your very first year. So I'm going to cover that with you guys in a little while. But I had to learn that it wasn't, in the past, I thought, well, I had to handle everything. I was micromanager. I had to learn to give some of that up. And I also had to learn that to find what my skills are. Most people, where they fail is that they think they want to be good at everything. They want to handle everything. You have only so many hours in the day. And so if you want to scale your business even from 100,000 to $1 million, and then from $1 million to 20 million, and 20 million to 60 million, you have to think a lot differently. And so my business was in the position of what I call adolescence in business when I hit $1 million. In fact, I'm still a bit in adolescence at nearly $60 million in evaluation. And the same things that took me as a maverick in some ways and just sheer push and sheer time putting in that took me from where I was at from $1 million to 20 million, right, are not the same things that'll work to go from that to having a sustainable business and actually have the time freedom and the flexibility that goes along with that. And so I'd say the biggest lesson I learned is to bring in experts, bring in people. For example, my strength, I understand taxes, I understand the dollars, right? But I'm also an artist by nature, and so I will validate every expense I make. Like last year, I spent over $340,000 more for my events than I brought in. But I validate it by saying, well, that's not that bad, because if I bring in 1 or 2 top producers out of that plugged into my events, it pays for itself long term, right? Well, a CFO is not going to think that way. So bring in the right person on finance. You can get a virtual CFO. I brought the right person in that handles marketing now, so they handle the marketing side of this. I still give input, and I still have this attitude of knowing a little bit about each thing, but it allows you the ability to think more omnipotently, right, and look over all of your business. But the biggest thing I would say is get around people who are doing better than you are. When you're doing $1 million, people think, well, you've made it. You do $20 billion, people are telling you all around you, you've made it. But you've got to escalate it. So if you're somebody who's never made $1 million, get yourself around a few millionaires. Read their books, plug into their stuff, go to events where these millionaires are giving and compressing 20, 30, 40 years of their time into a book or into an event. Plug into that. For me, being at, for example, Business Mastery, being around a lot of people who are multimillionaires, $30 million plus in income, $100 million, even some billionaires, you start thinking a lot differently. Don't buy into your own shit is the first thing. Don't buy into your own shit, because you think you know it all. But the one thing that's so true today in today's marketplace, if you're not changing, you're going to die. If you're not evolving, you're going to die. And the same thing that got you to this point, you've got to think differently, think outside the box, and find a way to satisfy your clients and to satisfy your team. Great question, Phil. Thank you. Next question.
This is Brian.
By the way, we're going to send you a $100 bill, Phil. You might have to wait to spend that till you get to Vegas, because we don't have rubles or euros or whatever you use over in the UK. All right, go ahead with the next question. Go ahead, you're live. Who are we talking to?
Brian.
This is Brian.
Hey, Brian. Go with your question.
Hey, Kori, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in. Hey, I hope.
First of all, let me start with that, Brian, because I love you. Don't ever start that way. When you say I'm hanging in there, I'm doing okay, I'm fine, don't say that. You say I'm fucking amazing. Okay? Because you know what that does? It changes your state for that split second, and you start trying to validate why you just said that you're amazing. When I don't feel amazing, I tell myself I do, and you can call it lying to yourself or call it telling the truth in advance. So when I don't feel like it, I say I'm fucking amazing in my head.
Outstanding.
Okay, go ahead, Brian. Sorry, that wasn't your question, I know.
Well, hey, I hope this isn't too individualized. I hope this is some general application. But, I told you in the past that I've gone through kind of a dark stretch. Not that I was doing dark things, but I've kind of lost, I kind of surrendered that perception of my own value and potential for a time. And as I'm climbing out of some of that junk, and I've been working on that with you with some of the stuff you've been teaching. Do you have any points on how to keep from being your own crab in the bucket, letting your own let some of those things creep in your mind, and not letting yourself get overwhelmed as you at what point does the massive action become overwhelming, and how do you avoid getting into that and pace yourself, I guess, so to speak?
I'm going to be honest with you. Don't pace yourself.
Okay.
What I mean by that is so you have to know yourself, and if you get yourself in the mindset that you say you're overwhelmed and you feel overwhelmed, first of all, watch the language you're saying. If you say I'm feeling overwhelmed, you're already dead. Your brain says I'm overwhelmed. Here are the reasons why I'm overwhelmed. You have to push yourself. You have to push your body, push your mind, and anybody can do almost anything for a short period of time. I mean, let's give an easy example. So you've heard the stories about people that have a car accident, and an old lady who's 80 years old somehow lifts the back of the car off of her grandchildren. How does that happen? Because you can do so much more than what your brain tells you can do when you're in a fight or flight mode. I personally like it when I'm in fight or flight mode. I like it when I feel overwhelmed. In my brain, I start thinking that, right? Because then it tells me, Kori, you got to put the pedal down. Don't back away. Put the pedal down even harder. And you can tell yourself, well, because everyone will tell you, they tell me all the time, Kori, you're going to burn yourself out. You can't push this much. You're burning the candle from both ends. I'm like, fuck no, I've cut the candle in the middle. I'm burning from the inside out as well. Because I know I can handle anything. You have so much more ability, but you've got to do all these things, Brian. You've got to find out how to get your unlimited energy. I have energy because I tell my body what I need it to do, and I fuel my body correctly, and I work out. If it's my family time, because that could be something you're overwhelmed with, is your family and the challenges and financial and whatever it might be. You've got to quit focusing on where you don't want to be and where you want to go. It's like the whole thing about the law of attraction. Is if you're focused, for example, on your bills, as an example, or what's wrong in your life, you'll start creating references of why you believe that way, And you might say, well, I didn't want the debt. I don't like the debt. And I'm focusing on not having the debt. What do you focus on? You're focused on the debt. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to think about, what are you focusing on? What are you telling yourself? So let's dig down a little bit deeper, Brian. So what are the things that you feel are your barriers or your challenges or your, the brick wall in front of you to overcome? What are the negative things that are happening? And I'm only covering that because I want to talk to you about how to reframe it.
Well, I think in my experience, and like I said, going through some of the things that you do in life, some of the stuff that you have challenges and you have some failures, and you begin to identify those as who you are. And I'm noticing that as you crawl out of that stuff wants to demand that attention. It keeps, it's like it's running in the background, so to speak, without you noticing it. And it comes up at stupid times, and you think, wait a minute, I can't, like you say, you don't want to focus on it, but.
So Brian, here's what I see, and this again, I categorize things, but I just, as you know, by the way, if you guys are calling in, you're allowing me to say what I need to say, and what I feel you need versus what you probably want to hear. All right. So if you guys give me that, Brian, can I be honest with you? Mm-hmm. So first of all, what you're doing is you're throwing your identity into certain things that you shouldn't. You're throwing your identity on the level of success what you're accomplishing right now. You're looking at as a guy, it's even worse. Why do they say the average guy, when he quits working, dies 5 years later? Because he doesn't feel a sense of purpose. Now, women, it's not that way. Women can find their sense of purpose in a lot of different areas. Men are born and grow up in an environment, especially in the United States, where your identity is all tied to your paycheck. Which is also why, this is the only country as well, Phil, you tell me if I'm wrong, in the UK, you don't ask people, hey, how much money is he making? How much money are you making? They don't do that. Here, it's all tied to your identity, because what I'm asking you, Brian, when I ask you, hey, what do you do as an example? I ask you, what do you do, to see if it's worth my time to even talk to you. That's how we think in the U.S. In other countries, they don't do that. They talk about your kids, your family, other things first, and then they might get to what you do for your career. The challenge is that you have the things that have happened to you in a negative way over the last 5 years, last 10 years, whatever it might be. You start creating references and putting legs underneath of a statement. So I'll use the example. I know it's not your challenge, Brian, but I'll use a relationship as an example. So let's say, for example, you get into a relationship and that person just shits on you, right? Then you get another relationship and it goes really, really, really well, and all of a sudden they just dump you. And you go to another relationship and something turns out in a bad way. What happens, you create a thermostat, and that thermostat setting is at that point. So what will happen is, I see this happen over and over and over again. You'll see somebody gets in a good relationship, it's going really, really well, and they sabotage it. They sabotage it because they don't want to get hurt again. Your brain's designed to keep you away from pain. So then instead of you getting turned down, let down, whatever it might be, that thermostat kicks in, and so you just sabotage the relationship. We do that as well with our business. So for example, if you have some deep down things in your mind where you feel that, hey, if I have money, I don't have a family life, or if I'm greedy, or if you have a belief that things in business will go well for a period of time, or that you're not competent enough because you've got a reason. You went into a company and you didn't close the deal, so now you have this identity that you're not successful, right? And so once you create these references, you're kind of screwed, because now imagine a table, right? If I have this table or this desk as an example, and I've got one leg of this table saying that I'm bad in a relationship, or bad when it comes to my amount of money that I'm making, or whatever it might be, I can knock that leg out. But if I get another reference, another reference, another reference, another reference, I'm in trouble, because now I've got this foundation that's solid that's pulling me back. So I would give you, my best advice I can give you is this, which is the simplest advice. I would like to deconstruct more time with you, Brian. We can do offline. I think there's some things that I can do with you, but here's the simplest way to do it. You need to re-brainwash yourself. And the way you re-brainwash yourself, so back up, and I'm going to say, so you guys all know the framework of this, every single one of you is brainwashed. You're brainwashed. When you were born, you had a clean slate. It didn't say, Brian, you're this, Kori, you're this. We all had a clean slate. And from your parents, your peers, your teachers, people you got jobs with, created Brian, right? Created you. That's who you are. Your identity is wrapped around all these things you've had to learn, and the references that you have and how you think about life. So what I want you to do is this. Who do you need to be to feel successful? Who do you need to be to not feel overwhelmed? So for example, if you change in the morning your affirmation or incantation to say, I'm Brian, I can fucking handle anything life throws at me. I can handle anything. How would that change if you actually believe that? So write down five things that pick every area of your life that you want to work on. What is the belief, if you actually truly believed, had the framework and the references to prove it, that you were unstoppable, that you could handle anything, what would those references be? And once you have those references, then you create incantations around it to say every single morning, every single night. You say them in your mind 5 times and say them out loud with energy and with passion. Once you start believing it, your life will change. And you can say you're lying to yourself again, or you're telling yourself shit that's not true. I call it telling yourself the truth in advance, because if you tell yourself something over and over again, you'll start believing it. Your brain does not know the difference at all of what you're creating in your brain and what is reality. In fact, what happens in your brain is as much reality as far as the synapses in your brain as if it actually happened physically. Which is why you can dream and wake up and feel that dream is still real, because it is the same in your brain. Why Michael Jordan can shoot free throws, right, in his brain, and then he can shoot them, actually shoot them in the basket, and his brain work, his brain waves are exactly the same. So reprogram yourself, Brian. Find out the areas you got to work on and create the statements that, if you believe those statements, would change your life.
Excellent.
Does that help?
That does. That helps tremendously. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Make sure you guys are writing everyone down, because I'm sure they'll want their $100. Okay, go ahead. Bree?
Hi, Dennis. Do we still have you? Okay. Thanks for waiting. Make sure you talk loud.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian. The floor is yours, buddy.
Dennis.
Dennis.
Hey, Kori, it's Dennis. How are you?
Hey, there you are.
Sorry, hold on. Let me mute my computer because it's kind of echoing here.
Are you checking out or getting your nails done?
He's watching you.
Am I? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. No, I'm not getting my nails done. Actually, I just got done with job number 1 and on to energy network number 2.
Awesome. Love it.
Yes, sir. So I guess I kind of had maybe like a broad question about finances. I know you and I had kind of briefly talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I feel like I'm kind of spiraling down into this hole, and I'm looking for maybe some tips on how to not necessarily save, but what to pay off first, or what to tackle, and so forth.
All right, so he's talking about the financial cycle. So, and this is the fight on left and right here, Dennis. The fight is, as an entrepreneur and as somebody who wants to create something, you have to invest, right?
Right.
But on the same token, you also have to have the ability to financially move forward, so you don't hit a brick wall. So you've got to have that balance in there. So here's what I will say: is you've got to look at your life and where you currently are. For me, for example. Look at Susie Orman, or I look at, what's the other guy's name? I always forget his name for some reason. Probably because I tell myself I forget his name. The other guy that's talking about, Bree?
Sorry, what?
Never mind. All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's not listening.
I'm trying to feel.
Dennis, you know what I'm talking about? Like Susie Orman, the debt snowball. He's one of those popular. He's worth
Dave
maybe...
Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, thank you.
Sorry,
So I get stuck on something, I got to figure it out. So Dave Ramsey, there was a time in my life where I needed to hear that stuff. I had to find a way to cut my expenses back. I had to find a way to live a bit like a hermit if I had to get my finances up to the point where I had some insulation there and I had some room to breathe. And so there's a time in my life I had to focus on that. So, Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman's a good place to start. The debt snowball is something you want to look at, which is you got to give yourself momentum. So that's really simple. But most people don't have the discipline to do it. What that means is you take all of your credit cards you've got, and those credit cards, you put them in order of your interest rate and order of the amount that you actually owe. And what you want to do is find the interest rate, right, that's the highest, and pay that off first. So the first thing you do is call all of your credit card companies, and you tell them, hey, I've got the ability to do a balance transfer on this card. I got an offer to do that, but I want to keep my money with you if possible. I like your card. And so are you willing to give me a year at no interest? And a lot of them are going to say no. Some will say yes, but they're going to cut it in half at least. They'll come back to you and say, listen, Dennis, I can give you a year at like 12% because they don't want you to pull your money away from them because all the interest you're paying is money to them, right? So they don't want you to pay it off and have a balance transfer. So that's one, is get them to get your interest rates down. Number two is pick the credit card then that has the lowest amount on it, and take all of your credit cards and put in your budget what you can afford to pay on those cards, to pay them off. So go above and beyond the minimums, of course. Do at least double what the minimums are on your cards, double. And find a way to back your lifestyle down or go out and have another side hustle and make more money till you have double the amounts of your cards. The minimum on your cards is $3,000 a month. You got to find a way to have $6,000 a month. Start on the least amount of the card you owe money on and pay payments on all these cards, right? All these cards. And once that first one's paid off, the least amount, you see momentum there. Don't touch that card again. Stick it in a safe, stick it in a drawer, or chop the fucker up. Whatever you got to do. Get rid of that card. Then keep the same amount of money, that $6,000 or whatever the number is. Let's say it's $3,000 to the $6,000. Next, when that small card's paid off, keep paying the same payments, but a higher amount on the second card on that list. So the second card, instead of owing like $1,000, you owe $2,000. Pay that one off. Now the third card, keep the same amount of money, the $6,000 you're paying, and it starts compounding like a snowball. And pay all the cards off. Because no matter what you think, investing money and talking about the investments that I do in life settlements or with Grant Cardone and all the other investments, it doesn't make sense investing into something and getting 12%, 15% return, which I don't typically do anything less than 12 to 15% return. But you're paying 20 to 30% on your credit cards in some cases. At the minimum, you're paying probably 20, 25%. So you've got to chop those suckers off is the first thing, but that doesn't change. You've got to create a new habit. You've got to take a car. If you got a brand new car, get rid of the stupid thing and buy a car you can pay for and drive a jalopy for the next year if you have to. So you've got to find out where you're at in your life. If you're at that point where you feel like you're at the rock bottom and you're worried about your credit cards and everything else, find a way to snowball that. Dave Ramsey, look him up on YouTube. Just look up the debt snowball, and you find an easy path to do that. You can put your cards in an Excel spreadsheet and watch it get paid off. So that's the first thing. Then the capital you have, you've got to get back to what I taught you guys about 3 weeks ago, which is you've got to take and find a way to live off of 20% of your money. So if you make $10,000 in a month, you take $4,000 off the top to invest. You take $4,000 off the top for taxes. They'll pull it out in most cases on their own. $4,000 on tax, it leaves you $2,000 a month to survive off of. If you can't survive off of it, have a side hustle, raise your level of income, and in my opinion, find a way to raise it, work, do what you've got to do to get to $20,000 or $30,000 a month so you can actually live comfortably. But that 40%, you may say that's hard to do. It is hard to do. But it's going to get progressively easier as what everybody else does. And here I'll use you as an example is Taylor just got a phenomenal job, right? Got a brand new job. He's going to start. It's probably going to increase their family income by maybe 3 times or 4 times what they're currently making. Most people are going to automatically go buy a new car, go ahead and raise their lifestyle up, enjoy themselves. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but what I've had to learn to do is it's taken a lot of discipline. I'm still not there myself, trust me. But you've got to discipline yourself to say, okay, I could live off of this. I could survive off of this, keep it at that level, but dump 40%. First of all, look at your company's matching program. Match as much as you can on your 401 with the company. And take the rest, make sure you're investing in the right, stocks that are within that 401. But then you got to pull that and you got to look at whatever you've got left over, stack cash till it piles up to this much, and then invest into assets that are going to keep paying you money. Most people go buy a house. That's not a good place to put your money, guys. You can fight me all day long, but you have a house. If you buy a house, for example, my house is probably $700,000. I'm going to pay $1.4 million over 30 years, roughly. Almost double I'm going to pay because of my interest. I'd rather lease the house, rent the house, and take the money that I have so I don't have to deal with any of the challenges. If I want to move, I can move. And the money that I've got left over, I'd be putting into that house. I'm stacking that cash and putting it into assets that are paying me money, not an asset that's taking my money. If you want to read a good book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad's a great book to read about that, its whole series. But the first one's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, to understand the cash flow quadrant. If it's not giving you money, if it's not paying you a monthly return, or return on your money, it's not an asset, it's a liability. Most people have 3/4 of their money, their net worth, into a house that may be going up in value, but in most cases not going up any faster than what your payments are, right? And that's why the first 5 years of your house, almost all of it's going in interest, because they know the average person moves every 5 years, and a car that's appreciating in value. That makes no sense to me. So get control of it. And if you need more money to grow your side hustle, as I know you do, Dennis, then you got to find a way to get more cash flow coming in. Don't keep putting more money on credit cards. Find a way to make more money to pay them off.
Right. Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dennis. We've got time for one more good one.
Shauna, do I still have you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're ready for you.
Hey, Shauna.
Okay. Hey, how's it going, Kori?
This is the Shauna that I know from Pierce that I said your name wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Well, I didn't know you got married and your last name changed, and then you went with a crazy Loshana Wana or whatever it is for your first name, so I got confused.
It's Josh and Shauna together.
I didn't know your name was so unique, so cool.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
So I started our direct business September 1st last year, and we are doing extremely awesome. I have 11 part-time dealers under me. It's hard to keep them motivated. I have put in place, like you do with the money, top dealer gets an extra $100 this month, plus their commissions. Is it time for me to let them go, or how do I keep them motivated?
So I want you to remember something. This is going to be a hard truth, and those that work actually for me probably won't like this comment. It's easier to give birth than to raise the dead. Okay?
True, yeah.
So what my challenge was, and I still have a bit of this. If you guys know me, know I have a bit of this. In my 20s, one of my mentors told me, Kori, the challenge you have is you have the Messiah complex. You feel like you can save everyone. And it's a good trait to have, but you will get burned so many times. And what you have to realize is, so here's what I had to learn. I had to learn this. The way you motivate people, the biggest way you motivate them is to find a way to find out why they're doing it. If you find out what their actual reason why is, not just to have a little bit extra cash flow, not the little piddly shit that people tell you. It's not, I want to pay my bills. That's not going to motivate me to get out of bed in the morning. They've got to have a big enough reason why. So I would focus in my company. Tell me if those that are working with me in my company can tell me how much time that I spend on the nuts and the bolts of how to build a business, and how much time do I spend on the mindset, and how much time do I spend on finding out your reason why you're doing it. Because once you understand why they're doing it, and it's a big enough reason why, they'll get them up early in the morning, keep them out late at night, they'll pay the price, because with what you do, tell me if this isn't true, Shauna, is that with what you do, you're going to have rejection. And what you do, people are going to turn you. And so if you don't have them so mentally focused, because in life, you'll always, always, always not follow through if the pain of doing it is not less than the reward and what you want to get on the backside of it. So if the reward is big enough, the reason why is big enough, you'll push through shit to get there. You'll push yourself through anything to get there. You'll go around it, over it, under it, through it. And that's what you need. And so I'll just say this, which you may or may not know. In my 20s, my first $1 million that I earned was in direct sales. And I had a sales team of over 65,000 people I created within 3 years. I was making over $1 million a year by the time I was 19. And that was created because of my mentor who taught me that skill set, that art form of forgetting about why I'm doing it, forgetting about what the math says in the compensation plan, forgetting about what they can get on the backside of it. Why are they doing it? If they're doing it because they need free time, then focus on that. If they're doing it because of their kids, you got to keep digging deeper and deeper. Spend time with your team on the vision board thing and have them compare it. The other thing is, I had to learn this. This was a challenging thing to learn. Did you lose her? No? Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay, the challenging thing I had to learn for myself is this. Quit trying to make everyone happy. Quit trying to please them. Understand, people want to be led. People actually want to be led. They want someone to say, I'm going to the top of this mountain with or without you. I love you. I believe in you, but I don't count on you for my own success. I'm going to go do this. And either you decide you want to, and you can get off this train whenever you want to. You can climb whatever plateau you want in this mountain, but I'm going to the top here, and I'm going to show you how it's done. And I'm going to show you by my example, and I'm going to motivate and make it happen and not take excuses, and quit listening to their bullshit excuses. If they want it bad enough, they will find a way. If they don't, somewhat, so what's the saying? Some will, some won't, so what next, right? There's plenty of people that are out there to make it happen, so motivate them, push them, believe in them, but don't count on them. When I was building my direct sales business, here's what I believed, is that if I want to move up in my position in the company, I had to do at least half of the volume myself. And I would go out and do that. And by the way, if you need some input, I actually am pretty good. I used to build and do consulting group with a lot of companies in this industry of how you tap root, how you motivate people from underneath, and all those different strategies. I can suggest some really good books from some of my mentors that I plug into. I don't know if you know Randy Gage, Randy Schrader, or Eric Worre, who's a good friend of mine. I talk to him at least once every 6 months or so, who owns GoPro. But anyway, I can give you some guidance of who to plug into. But you've got to get the mindset that I'm going to the top of this mountain, and either you lead, you follow, or you get the fuck out of my way. And that, if you have that attitude, people will follow you. Some are going to talk shit, some are going to fall out the backside of it, but you can do a conference call and let them all plug into it. But don't give time and energy to people that aren't going to go out and do what they say they're going to do. And I tell people this, like when I was in direct sales, I would say, if you tell me you want something, I expect you to do what you say you're going to do. And if you tell me, Kori, fuck off, I will leave you whenever you want me to. But I'm going to go and push you to the level that I want results, right? You want results. You want to do this to get your husband not having to work 60 hours a week. You want to do this to travel. You want to do this because you love your kids, want more time with your kids. You want to do this because you want your kids to have more choices in their life than you have. Well, if you truly want that, then do what you say you're going to do. If not, then I'm going to quit working with you, or I'm going to, because I can fire you. I choose who I will put my time and energy into. When people realize that you want something, you want to push them because you want them to be better, not because you want to be a bitch. You're doing it because you want them to be better. You want them to accomplish something. You want them to change their lives. And it's not going to happen by you pussyfooting around it and just patting them on the back and saying, good job. It's like your kids, no matter what they do that's wrong, if you're patting them on the back and saying, good job, good game, good job getting 15th place, and not working together as a team, right? You can't do that.
Right.
People want to be around people who know where they're going. And what's going to happen to you, and I know your personality is, first they're going to push against you. Yeah. Then they're going to say, well, but when you start becoming, it's amazing to me how many people, like, for example, that I same thing I'm talking to you guys about, I've done for the last 25 years, 2.5 decades. But now that I've gotten popularity, we've got 150 to 250,000 people a week looking at my stuff. Now all of a sudden they're coming out, oh my God, Kori, I'd love to work with you, I'd be around you. Well, that's going to happen to you is you just keep your level here, your expectation here, and what you're willing to do here. And you're going to find those people. And all it takes is, in direct sales is 5 or 6 amazing people, and you're set.
Absolutely. Totally.
All right. Thank you, lady. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time. I'd love to do this about every, a few months, just if you guys enjoy it. Let me know if you enjoyed me doing this. I would love to, I'd love to coach you guys one-on-one. Understand the reason I don't, it's not sustainable for me. I only have so many hours in the day. So this gives me the ability to talk in a group setting with you guys and hopefully create some impact for you. Again, if you haven't joined our 30-day challenge, you're willing to step up, you're willing to contribute, go check out our group, the 30-day challenge. It'll when you get into there, there's a document you can download that tells you what we want you to do. But understand, you're not going to be perfect. It's about growing, about expanding, about changing your life. So appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for joining me today. And we'll talk to you guys not this next Monday, but the following Monday. I might have a treat for you guys in the middle. So keep checking on social media because I may send you guys some a fun message just to surprise you guys. So thanks. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.